Part 4. Section 180. Treason. 1. A person who commits high treason is liable to suffer death. 2. For the purposes of subsection 1, high treason has the meaning assigned to it by Clause 3 of Article 3 of the Constitution. 3. A person who is not a citizen is not punishable under this section for anything done outside Ghana, but the citizen may be tried and punished for high treason under this section wherever committed. Section 181. Misprision of treason. A person who knows of the commission of high treason, or of a treason within the meaning of Clause 17 of Article 19 of the Constitution, and does not forthwith reveal it to the President, or to a police officer not below the rank of inspector, commits a misprision of treason and is punishable as for a first-degree felony. Section 182. Treason felony. A person commits a treason felony and is punishable as for a first-degree felony who a. prepares or endeavors to procure by unlawful means an alteration of the law or of the policies of the government, or b. prepares or endeavors to carry out by unlawful means an enterprise which usurps the executive powers of the Republic in a matter of both a public and a general nature. Section 184. Insulting the national flag or emblem. A person who does an act or utters words or publishes a writing with intent to insult or bring into contempt or ridicule the official national flag or emblem of Ghana or a representation or pictorial reproduction of the flag or emblem commits a misdemeanor. Section 185. False reports injuring the reputation of the state. 1. A person who communicates to any other person, whether by word of mouth or in writing or by any other means, a false statement or report which is likely to injure the credit or reputation of Ghana or the government and which that person knows or has reason to believe is false, commits a second-degree felony. 2. Subsection 1 does not apply to a statement which is absolutely privileged under Section 117. 3. It is not a defense to a charge under this section that the person charged did not know or did not have reason to believe that the statement or report was false unless it is proved that, before the communication of statement or report, reasonable measures were taken to verify the accuracy of the statement or report. 4. A citizen may be tried and punished for an offense under this section whether committed in or outside Ghana. Section 186. Aiding or permitting escape of prisoner of war. 1. A person who intentionally and unlawfully aids or permits the escape of a prisoner of war commits a second-degree felony. 2. A person who negligently and unlawfully permits the escape of a prisoner of war commits a misdemeanor. 3. For the purposes of this section, escape includes the departure by a prisoner on parole beyond the limits within which the prisoner is allowed to be at large. Section 189. Unlawful training. Where 3 or more persons meet or are together for the purposes of military training or exercise, without the permission of the President or of an officer or person authorized by law to give the permission, each of them commits a misdemeanor. Section 190. Evasion of military service. A person who causes a personal harm or procures any other person to cause harm to that person, for the purpose of evading a liability to perform service or duty with the armed forces, commits a misdemeanor. Section 191. Unlawful oath. 1. A person who takes or administers or attempts or offers to administer to any other person an unlawful oath commits a misdemeanor. 2. For the purposes of subsection 1, unlawful oath means an oath or engagement a. to commit or abet a criminal offense, or b. to conceal a design to commit a criminal offense including a criminal offense punishable on indictment, whether under this act or under any other enactment, or c. to prevent the discovery of a criminal offense, or d. to conceal the existence, purposes or proceedings of an association of persons associated for a treasonable seditious purpose. Section 192. Possession of explosives, firearms, and ammunition. 1. Despite the provisions of any other enactment, a person who has in possession, custody, or control, without lawful excuse, the proof of which lies on that person, an explosive, a firearm or an ammunition, commits a first-degree felony. 2. A prosecution under subsection 1 shall not be instituted without the consent in writing of the Attorney General. 3. For the purposes of subsection 1. Ammunition includes ammunition for a firearm, and grenades, bombs, and any other similar missiles. Explosive means gunpowder, nitroglycerin, dynamite, gun cotton, blasting powder, fulminate of mercury or of other metals, and every other substance, whether similar to the above mentioned or not, used or manufactured with a view to producing a practical effect by explosion. Firearm includes a lethal-barreled weapon from which a shot, bullet, or any other missile can be discharged or which can be adapted for the discharge of a shot, bullet, or any other missile, and a component part of that weapon. Section 239. Corruption of and by public officer or juror. 1. A public officer or juror who commits corruption, or willful oppression, or extortion, in respect of the duties of office, commits a misdemeanor. 2. A person who corrupts any other person in respect of a duty as a public officer or juror commits a misdemeanor. Section 240. Explanation as to corruption by public officers. A public officer, juror, or voter commits corruption in respect of the duties of office or the vote, if the public officer, juror, or voter directly or indirectly agrees or offers to permit the conduct of that person as a public officer, juror, or voter to be influenced by the gift, promise or prospect of a valuable consideration to be received by that person, or by any other person, from any other person. Section 241. Explanation as to corruption of public officer. A person commits the criminal offense of corrupting a public officer, juror, or voter in respect of the duties of office or in respect of the vote, if that person endeavors, directly or indirectly, to influence the conduct of the public officer, juror, or voter in respect of the duties of office or in respect of the vote, by the gift, promise, or prospect of a valuable consideration to be received by the public officer, juror, or voter, or by any other person, from any other person. Section 242. Special explanation as to corruption of and by public officer. It is immaterial, for the purposes of Section 240 or 241, that the person respecting whose conduct the endeavor, agreement, or offer is made is not yet at the time of the making of the endeavor, agreement, or offer, a public officer, juror, or voter, if the endeavor, agreement, or offer, a public officer, juror, or voter, if the endeavor, agreement, or offer is made in the expectation that that person will or may become or act as a public officer, a juror, or a voter. Section 243. Corrupt agreement for lawful consideration. It is immaterial, for the purposes of Section 240, 241 or 242, whether the act to be done by a person in consideration or in pursuance of the gift, promise, prospect, agreement or offer is criminal or wrongful, otherwise than by reason of the provisions of any of those sections. Section 244. Acceptance of bribe by public officer, after doing act. Where, after a person has done an act as a public officer, juror, or voter, that person secretly accepts, or agrees or offers secretly to accept for personal gain or for any other person, a valuable consideration on account of the act, that person shall be presumed, until the contrary is shown, to have acted corruptly. Within the meaning of this chapter, in respect of that act before the doing of the act. Section 245. Promise of bribe to public officer, after act done. Where, after a public officer, juror, or voter has done an act as an officer, a juror or voter, any other person secretly agrees or offers to give or to procure for that person or any other person a valuable consideration on account of that act, the person so agreeing or offering shall be presumed, until the contrary is shown, to have corrupted, before the doing of the act, that public officer, juror, or voter, in respect of that act. Section 246. Explanation as to oppression. A public officer or juror commits the criminal offense of willful oppression in respect of the duties of office if that officer willfully commits an excess or abuse of authority, to the injury of the public or of any other person. Section 247. Explanation as to extortion. A public officer commits extortion who, under color of office, demands or obtains from a person, whether for public purposes or for personal gain, or for any other person money or valuable consideration, which the public officer knows is not lawfully authorized or at a time at which the public officer knows is not lawfully authorized to demand or to obtain that money or valuable consideration. Section 248. False declaration for office or voting. A person who, in order to obtain or be qualified to act in a public office or to vote at a public election, makes, signs, publishes or uses a declaration, statement or an oath, required by law or a certificate or testimonial regarding conduct or services, or as to any other matter which is material for obtaining that office, or for the qualification to act in that office or to vote at the election, commits a misdemeanor if that person knows that the declaration, statement, oath, certificate or testimonial is false in a material particular. Section 249. False certificate by public officer. A public officer commits a misdemeanor who, being bound or authorized as a public officer to attest or certify, by writing or otherwise, a document or matter, or that an event has or has not happened, and a. b. attests or certifies the document or matter knowing it to be false in a material particular, or attests that the event has happened or has not happened, without knowing or having reason to believe that it has happened or has not happened, according to the attestation or certificate. Section 250. Destruction of document by public officer. A public officer who intentionally and unlawfully destroys, injures, falsifies or conceals a document which is in the possession, custody, or control of the public officer or to which the public officer has access by virtue of office, commits a misdemeanor. Section 252. Accepting or giving bribe to influence public officer or juror. 1. A person who accepts, or agrees or offers to accept, a valuable consideration, under pretense or color of having unduly influenced, or of agreeing or being able so to influence, any other person in respect of functions as a public officer or juror, commits a misdemeanor. 2. A person who gives, or agrees or offers to give, to a public officer a valuable consideration for the grant to that person or to any other person of a benefit or an advantage, or for the exercise of influence in favor of that person or any other person, commits a misdemeanor. Section 253. Corrupt promise by judicial officer or juror. A person who, otherwise than in the due execution of duties as a judicial officer or juror, makes or offers to make an agreement with any other person as to the judgment or verdict which that person will or will not give as a judicial officer or juror in a pending or future proceeding, commits a misdemeanor. Section 254. Corrupt selection of juror. A person who, with the purpose of procuring an undue advantage or disadvantage to a party to a judicial proceeding, procures for that person, or for any other person to be summoned, impaneled or sworn as a juror in the proceeding, or endeavors to prevent any other person from being summoned, impaneled or sworn as a juror in that proceeding, commits a misdemeanor. Section 260. Withholding of public money by public officer. Where a public officer who is bound in that capacity to pay or account for money or valuable things, or to produce or give up documents or any other things, fails as in duty bound to pay or account for, or to produce or give up, to any other officer or person lawfully demanding the same, commits a misdemeanor. Section 261. Definition of valuable consideration. In this chapter, valuable consideration includes money, money's worth or valuable thing, and an office or a dignity, and a forbearance to demand money, or money's worth, or a valuable thing, and a private advantage of any kind.